Hello and welcome to Get Yourself Optimized. I'm your host, Stephen Spencer, and I'm so excited to have Mark Christopher Nelson join us today. Mark is a psychic medium with clairvoyant, clairaudient, and clairsentient abilities. He hears and sees messages from friends and family who have crossed over to the other side. Their messages can provide information about our relationships, careers, and personal growth that can help us make better decisions, achieve goals, and find greater happiness in our lives. I met Mark through a mastermind group that I'm in called Metal, and I believe there are no coincidences, so I'm super excited to have Mark join us today. Mark, thank you for being on the show.
Stefan, it's my pleasure. This is so much fun. I do my work as a psychic medium, and I still get a kick that we've got this the Mark Steven thing kind of connection there.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you,
used to
remember,
actually go by Steve or Steven in
Stefan.
my childhood because my aunt told me when I was probably 5 or 6 years old, something like that, that Stefan was a sissy name. Can you imagine a relative telling you that you have a sissy name? So then I went by Steve for the rest of my childhood until I finished high school. And then I'm like, hey, wait a second. Stefan's actually a really cool name. So then I switched back.
Yes, it's
Oh my
cooler.
goodness. Yeah. So your brother's name is Steven.
Well,
And
it's spelled like yours, but he goes by Steve,
yeah.
and
But
so
the difference is that Steven with a PH ends with an EN and Stefan with a PH ends with an AN.
hey, there
Yeah.
you go.
Yeah. So I first want to understand for our listeners' benefit and actually for mine personally is what's the difference, if there is one, between a medium and a psychic?
Great question. All mediums are psychics, but not all psychics are mediums.
Ah.
So what that means in a very practical level is that like my first experiences with seeing, experiencing however you want to describe this unique ability I have is that I saw my father who had passed. So I've been able to see people who cross over, who pass, and it started out with him, and then I realized I could see other people who crossed over. But unlike some people, some mediums only prefer to basically convey messages as to that someone near you who's crossed over, who's passed. Sometimes they'll have messages, but it isn't that simple, or it isn't that cut and dry for me because I'll hear that, say, for example, oh, your grandfather's here and he's telling me to tell you blah blah blah, but then it'll turn around to where it's like, uh, Stefan, you're supposed to do this business deal. I'm seeing that it's not like a partnership. Three people in a partnership are coming to you. Keep your eyes open for it. It's going to be very useful and valuable. So, or that person you're seeing is bad news. Don't. I wouldn't say it that way, but I mean, I would provide something. The idea is to provide usable information.
Yeah.
Provide something that you can apply, take home with you, do something with it.
Actionable insights.
Actionable information, my friend. Yes.
Yeah. And I imagine that it also can be helpful to provide some closure for somebody who feels like they didn't get a chance to say goodbye, or they were concerned about the way that the person passed was very violent or turbulent or difficult, and they want some peace of mind for themselves. Is that also something that happens?
That happens quite a bit. In fact, I've done work with this group that focuses, it's called Helping Parents Heal, and they focus on people who have lost children, be it adult children or infants and everyone in between. Unfortunately, that on a fairly regular basis can mean that someone has taken their own life. And so that can leave a gaping hole in someone's psyche, heart, mind for the rest of their days if a child of theirs took their own life. And so I've been able to provide insights. They come through with messages that kind of um, give people an ability to move forward a little bit. I mean, it's up to the person that gets the information, but it can be very to the point. People that they're in pain. You don't see it. In fact, that's the other thing is you'd be surprised at how many people walk around with this burden. But it isn't just for young people. If you put your mother or a father in a care facility of some kind. And then this has happened a lot where someone will make a misdiagnosis, or there'll be some kind of confusion about medical treatment that then would contribute to someone's passing. When that happens, people feel a lot of guilt. They think to themselves, had I done this differently, had I made a better choice, had I been a better son or daughter, had I been there more often, I might have been able to prevent this from happening. And normally the people that come through will say, you know what, this was okay. I was ready. I didn't want to stay longer. And by the way, you were wearing a blue shirt that day. Or at my funeral, I had this one very interesting one where everyone at the funeral kind of simultaneously or just spontaneously started like moving like this, waving their hands back and forth. It wasn't overly religious. It was more like a 60s revival. And so when I brought that to his attention, he said that really did happen. And then it brought more validation to some of the other points. This gentleman's wife died at home, and that it was she had cancer. There wasn't anything they can do. They tried everything they could, but she came through with saying, I'm really okay. This is what occurred. I'm better now. There's nothing that you could have really done differently. And so the idea is to provide some validation, some comfort. And believe me, people really need it sometimes. They walk around with these burdens, you know.
Yeah. So speaking of people passing and leaving behind like open loops and unanswered questions and burdens, so there is an event that happened in your childhood that
Yes.
started this whole trajectory for you and made you aware of your special ability. Do you want to share a bit about this?
Sure. When I was 11, we used to live in New Jersey. My dad um, went into what we would call the city, went into New York to see his mother who was ill. His car broke down. He went this is so far as we know, he went into the wrong bar, got into a fight, and was murdered in the bar in front of a bunch of people, but no one would testify because it was a mafia-owned bar. If you've seen the movie Goodfellas, it would not be unlike that. The guy was supposed to be a very well-known mafia enforcer, and my dad didn't realize what he was getting into. He just went in for a beer, and he never came home. And we had a closed coffin funeral. I never saw him again. So then, about a month after his funeral, which was, I mean, it was just very jarring to say, "Hey, Dad, see you later," and then he never comes home again. Well, then he came home again about a month after. I saw him. It was like in the early fall, and I'm trying to rake leaves and just be a little kid and kind of conduct life. And then I saw him in the driveway, and he was just being friendly, and I'm okay. And he wanted. It's like he was trying to reassure me, but it was I really wasn't ready for it, and it was very difficult. And then I saw him again at school, and I'm thinking, all right, we weren't raised in an environment. It wasn't the right time where everyone was very touchy-feely. I mean, most of the people that I knew when I was a kid, my mom, everybody else, we were just trying to move forward, get over it. There's nothing you can do, and so fairly not very, in some ways helpful, in other ways not. That was the advice I was given. So when I saw my dad again, I thought, I'm cracking up. I'm losing my mind. And so Dad, please go away. And then anyway, flash forward about 30 years, 25 years, let's say 20 years, even 25. I'm taking a walk one night after work. I'm thinking to myself, I wish my dad could have met my wife. Wished he could have met our daughter. We just bought a new house. Life was happening, and we were, it was a good time. It was a time of change, and I kept getting this persistent voice in my head telling me, I have met them. I have seen your wife. I know Barbara. I met your daughter. It's like, all right, I'm either having some kind of a mental problem, benign schizophrenia, I've heard it very generously called. Um, is it that? What is it? And so I asked this voice, tell me something I don't know if you really are my dad. And this voice told me something about my brother, Glenn, who was living on the other side of the country at the time. So I called my mom using the guise. All right, I just had a dream about Glenn, that he was working at a place called the Ivy, or white, and it had an image of Ivy on a white wall. Does that make any sense? And oh yeah, he just got a job working at a place called the Ivy, a little floral shop, frankly. And I described the logo for the place, the signage. And so I started to pay more attention to that voice. I heard more messages. And then I said, all right, I'm going to go. I got to see if I'm just like that. Someone tell me this about Glenn or my mom or other family members, or did I forget it and remember it? And so I went out to a psychic bookstore and said, I think I'm psychic. Can I try reading somebody? And they're like, sure. All right, read me, the owner. So I did, and I got this message that, all right, I see a young man connected to you. He looks like he's probably your son. Looks like he got beat up real badly in a fight, and your dad is taking care of him. Does that make any sense? And well, yes, my son was beat up by a bunch of boys, and my father is taking care of him right now. And would you like to read for us? So it went that rapidly. So I started to read, kind of like a part-time thing. I've been working in advertising and marketing for most of my career on the creative side of things as a writer and creative director kind of person. And so when this happened, it's like, all right, I can't really just act like that didn't happen. So I started to do it, and then to manage the time of it, I would started to just do appointments at my on the phone. Or I also realized I could do this by phone. I had no idea, and so I went from reading people in person in a store to reading them on the phone to most of my clients on the phone. And then flash forward, I went to was sent on a cattle call out here. Some client of mine said, "Hey, there's a TV show. They need psychics. You want to try it?" It's like, sure. I don't know. And so I did. I ended up doing a pilot for Fox TV on psychics, and it was called Gifted. And I ended up winning that psychic competition. They interviewed 200 psychic mediums. They put 6 of us on the air for the show. And I won the title of Gifted, Most Gifted. And so that kind of opened some doors. And I've been doing TV and radio and all of that ever since.
Yeah, so I saw a clip. I was doing my research before the episode, and was it on that Gifted show that you read these 3 different people? You figured out that they went to the same high school and all that?
Yes. That was, I mean, I get surprised. I get to, I get shocked because I don't know what I'm walking into. I mean, I really don't. These 3 young people sit down in front of me, and I was told they experienced something together. And so I sit there, and all of a sudden I start to see black boots. I see like military style boots. And I thought, oh, they served in Iraq or something. And then I see, no, it's in a school. And there's police, and they're shooting. And it's like, and then it's as if someone whispered in my ear, they went to Columbine. Mm-hmm. And it just kind of like, oh, crap. Okay. All right. And so I said, you guys went to the same high school. Yes. And then you went to Columbine High School. And then I started to see like you were hiding in the library. And he said, no, I was hiding directly below the library. You were at the back of the school and you were wounded. And then I just started to get these things. And it was just like, it's shocking to me sometimes. It really is. I don't know what I'm getting. I mean, but it's when I find myself being surprised, I find it validating.
Yeah.
Because it's hardly something you could plan or expect, and it was fascinating, really.
Yeah. Now, I imagine you might get not just skepticism from some folks, but kind of ostracized by some, like considered maybe a freak of nature or something like that. I have a friend who was married to a woman who had a gift, a healing gift. She could touch somebody and heal them, and she was from I think South America, in the forest or in the I guess the Amazon, and in her tribe, she would heal people, and then word got out to other tribes, so people would come from other tribes to get healings from her when she was little. And then she moved to North America, and she didn't want to be considered a freak, so she didn't let anybody know about her gift. Her husband knew, but that's it. And she never practiced again. She never healed anybody. And really spooky kind of story. Another friend of mine who's a healer, actually a past guest on this podcast. I'm not going to say who because I don't want to break any confidence, but he pulled my friend aside and said that your wife has a gift and she's not using it. And he's kind of freaked out about, like, how do you know? she needs to use it. She needs to use it. Mm-hmm. It will not be good if she doesn't. Like, it will be really bad for her. And she still refused. And they ended up getting a divorce because, and you can't change somebody and they really need a breakthrough and you can't do it for them. He just moved on. But that really stuck with me. Like, wow, if you deny a gift from the Creator like that, oh boy. So, anyways, I'm curious. How do you handle that kind of judgment?
Well, you know what? I will tell you this. I reserve the right to be wrong. There will be times, Stefan, I could tell, the game of telephone where you tell me and then I tell someone else. Yeah. Inevitably, there's going to be something dropped or lost, or an emphasis might be changed. Well, I'm listening to people who don't have physical bodies anymore. So I'm not using that as a out for, haha, that's no big deal. The truth is, or my belief is that I'm right way more often than I'm not. But just by being able to say, okay, I'm not going to get every one of them, it frees me to say exactly what I'm seeing, hearing, and feeling, and to be very straightforward about it. And that allows me to do better work. And so I would say, too, that if someone thinks is skeptical, I encourage it. It's like you don't have people go to great lengths to not tell me things before a reading, and that's fine. It's almost like sometimes, too, a client would come to me and they think they know what is the most important thing, and they might. Often they do. But there are times when someone in spirit has a different message for them that could be perhaps more significant. So I try to rely on what I hear. And in fact, if someone calls me, I'll say, please don't let me tell you what I hear first. And if I don't get to the thing that is most important to you, then you'll have time to ask questions a little bit further on in the reading. And so I would just say that I get a lot of clients from word of mouth. I don't really do much advertising. I mean, very little, but I do a little. And so I rely on people saying positive things. And also, too, you have to trust your gut. I mean, it's almost like, how do you choose a lawyer? How do you choose a doctor? You have to do a little homework. And I think I have very good reviews. That can be meaningful, too. But I would just say, follow your nose. If you're trying to choose a psychic medium, who is it that you can connect to and relate to? I find that I end up having a number of my clients end up being friends because they just they get a vibe from me that makes sense for them, and it makes it easier. It's almost like if someone walks in mentally closed, it feels a little harder to get through. Yeah. But when it's easy and relaxed, I just start hearing things boom, 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 and it allows me to be of greater value.
Yeah. Yeah, I say that it's fine to be a skeptic, but it's a kind of a dangerous path that you could a slippery slope, I guess.
Yes.
Because if you're a skeptic, it's just a little bit further, and then you're a cynic.
Yes, and how much is enough proof? I mean, I think that there again, the idea is that if I get like close on a name, or I get close on an event, but then I'm able to pick up other details. I mean, it gets to be like this is not random guessing. It's not like consistently flipping coins because I get fairly obscure details sometimes that there's just no way anyone would know, and that's okay. But I mean, that's the idea, frankly. So I try to provide, again, actionable information. I try to make it relevant. And I also think that because of who I am, I hear clients don't come to me with like, who was I in a past life? Or like, I like to stick to things that I can validate, that they can validate. And it's funny, it's like they'll say that doesn't make any sense. There's this thing called psychic amnesia where you go and you see a client or you see someone comes to me and I'll say, this happened this one time. There's a man here whose name begins with the letter J. He says he knows you very well. He has a very short J name. J begins with a J. And J is telling me this, this, this. And then she says, well, I wanted to, and the woman says, well, I wanted to speak to my husband, Joe, and he would never say that. Well, Joe begins with a J, right? And Joe did say those things. And that, yeah, well, that makes sense. Well, I'm not here. I mean, yes, I want you to feel validated, but if this information is correct, but it isn't exactly what you wanted to hear, you can't argue with the fact that I heard these things. Joe told me them. Joe told me his name. Joe, I mean, so it's just funny. It's like, or they'll say, okay, that doesn't make any sense, and then I'll get a call 3 or 4 weeks later. Mark, you were correct. This happened. This happened. And so, rather than me getting all full of myself, it's more about, well, I'm glad I heard it correctly for you. I'm glad the information proved to be accurate.
Yeah.
You know,
that's a great position to take. I think it's very humble and puts the message front and center instead of you kind of as a celebrity. Like, I've been the medium who was voted or selected most gifted on this Fox TV show, etc.
well, it's like I honestly feel that if I started to get very full of myself, so to speak, I almost think that like my help on the other side would say, let's drop him. He's a pain in the neck. He's obnoxious. We don't want to be associated with that kind of person. So I have to try not to. I mean, it just doesn't make me any better at what I do, and I'm not like that anyway. I'm just me,
Yeah.
And so
that's part of the reason why you were probably selected, right?
Well, I don't wear a turban, in case anybody wants to know. Turban doesn't work for me. No large, gemstones on my head. That seems a little over the top.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, there's this expression that I really I resonate with it, and it's the willing suspension of disbelief.
Yes. Oh, I love that. I mean, it's accurate. But then, in my field, I have to. I mean, I'm glad that you can come with me on it. But then, if I provide specific details that are relevant to the issues that you're facing or the person that you want to be in touch with, at one point, how much is enough? I mean, I'll get a name. I'll say this person said that there was a medical issue at the end of the life that was beyond their control. The doctor made a misdiagnosis. There was a lawsuit connected to it. Don't go through. I mean, this has happened. Don't go through with the lawsuit. You'll never prove it, but this is what occurred. And then, or it's like the will, the jewels that you're looking. I mean, literally, people call me up. I can't find these gems that were in my house when I said, well, they were stolen. They became, your brother-in-law's wife took them or something. It's like I hear stuff like that, and I have to. The idea is to be, again, useful and to tell people something they didn't know.
Yeah. Do you ever solve crimes, or are you asked to solve crimes?
I've worked once with the Justice Department, and they asked me if I could find a body. And I found bones. It turned out to be, I don't know why, but I found animal bones in this, doing remote viewing, where you look at it. They say, okay, up near this large, there's some large park up north in the San Jose area, and I described a spot where there was like a red pipe sticking out of the ground, like a curved pipe that was like kind of random. They said there's bones there, and it turned out to be animal bones, like a large carcass of some kind. But it's like that didn't help them. But on the other hand, I have been brought in on TV shows for like cold cases,
Mm-hmm.
or they'll even know, but they want to see if there's anything left. Like I've been involved with the Black Dahlia murder. This took place in L.A. in the 1940s, and people don't know who was behind it. They think they know who the killer was for the Black Dahlia murder. Well, this TV show brought me in and said, "Do you get anything here?" And they didn't tell me any details. They just brought me in, and they said what they told me is it may have something to do with the Black Dahlia case. So it's a house they call the Sowden House on Franklin Avenue on the east side of Hollywood. I went in and I saw a guy that it's like he was dressed in 1940s clothes, and then for some reason it's like, oh, you're a doctor. Oh, okay, and you killed several women here, a number of women here. Okay, so as soon as before any producers or anyone could kind of like start talking around me and filling in or giving me anything, I said, if a doctor lived at this house at the time of the Black Dahlia murder, he did it. He was the one. That's the guy. And they're like, okay, well, that kind of hit that, you know. And then I also had a chance to I was called in to investigate a property on Cielo Drive next to where the Sharon Tate murders took place. It was, the people who lived there, this guy kind of has a house. You walk in and it's as if you're back in the 1960s. The music is playing, there's posters, there's the Doors, there's the Rolling Stones, and and I can almost see why these people who, died in 1969 might feel very at ease there. So I did feel like the Sharon Tate's spirit was there, and and then there's one of the other victims came through rather loud and clear. His name was Jay Sebring. He was a hairdresser, friend of Sharon Tate's, and I got the name of Sharon Tate's child. They were going to name her unborn son. I can't remember the name now, but I got the name. What was funny too is that I said that Sharon is here, and they said, "Well, can you get her to do something on camera? And can you get her to do something in the room?" And I said, well, "All right, if you're Sharon, if you're here, can you do something to the camera that is focused on me?" And the camera turned off. And so they said, "Okay, all right. Well, please don't ask her to do anything else like that anymore." So, it was validating. But in terms of crime, I mean, it's again, and I keep running into stuff with the Sharon Tate or Manson murders. Someone gave me a knife to hold, and I didn't really know anything about it. But I said, "Oh, this was used in a murder. It was used killing. I mean, it was a guy. I think there's a guy that was associated with the Manson family, Shorty Shea. But his first name was something else. I can't remember specifically. Donald, I think it was, or something like that. Anyway, it turns out that this knife had been found on the Spawn Ranch property in a bloody sock with a finger bone in there next to the sock. So it's like, okay, well, that's that's probably it. The murder has already been solved, but no one found the knife. No one found some of the. I mean, it's kind of a weird thing. She was out, this lovely lady, I got to know her. She was out walking her dog out at this ranch, saw a little tuft of fabric sticking out of the ground. She thought, that's kind of weird. Why is there like someone's a piece of clothing sticking out of the ground? She started pulling on it and found like a pile of bloody pants and bloody sock and the knife and the bone. It's like, well, this seems pretty interesting. So, I mean, I've done that. I haven't been involved in any active cases. So,
wow.
but it's been interesting. It's been interesting.
So when you communicate with these people who have passed, who had a violent end, uh, do they feel unresolved to you? Does it feel like unfinished business, or that they're in kind of a limbo because it
Hmm.
was such a violent end?
Well, some of them are a little confused about what happened, or they can't accept it because they were supposed to go and do something important on Monday. Instead, they were killed on Saturday night. In the case of Sharon Tate, she was not really, from what I could tell, really happy with the fact that everyone was focusing on the horrible last moments of her life. She said, I mean, what I could hear was that we are beautiful again. We are beautiful again. They don't want to be only thought of as victims. I mean, um, it was interesting with Jay Sebring. I heard him say, I had big plans. And so, again, it was being recorded. They played back me saying it. And then when they played back the recording, they heard a second voice saying, I had big plans. So you had my voice saying, I had big plans. And then you hear this other voice saying, I had big plans.
Oh,
And it's,
that's wow. That's wild.
yeah, and it's called the electronic voice phenomena.
Yeah.
So what happens is that you can ask a question and then you wait and you don't hear anything. And then you play back the tape of asking it, and you'll often hear um, other voices. I know that some TV shows have been known to fake it, or they'll hear some garbled, and then they say, "Oh, that's my Aunt Martha." It's like, well, I can't identify that. I don't know how much sound doctoring you've done here, but I think it's this is what I heard. Like I had big plans, came through fairly clear, and I've heard other things like that. We were on the Queen Mary. Um, I'll tell you two quick electronic voice phenomena. On the Queen Mary, um, I heard there's a famous young man that died. He's famous after he passed. He was crushed in a doorway on the Queen Mary, and so people were asking me, um, was he? How could this happen? The doors don't close that quickly. It's not like a mousetrap. They kind of roll shut, and so um, the question was he drunk or was it a dare or was it what happened? And I heard it was a dare. And then they played back the tape of me saying, oh, he did it on a dare, like to see if he could jump back and forth 5 times. And then you hear a separate voice saying it was a dare. So that's kind of convincing when, and just the sheer kind of like, I didn't know what was going to be asked. I just happened to be rolling through. I knew the guy running the event. I didn't know what he was going to ask. He didn't know what he was going to ask. And then we get something that is kind of like, how could you have faked that? I don't know. And then, anyway, there was another one I was going to tell you, but they really do they can say things that you don't expect, and it can be quite compelling.
Yeah. When you get into an environment where it's like a haunted house or
Mhm.
some horrible event took place there, like the Queen Mary. So I did a tour, a haunted tour of the Queen Mary,
Mhm.
and there's this part, I think it's in the bulkhead area in the front, where there was an explosion. Another
Yeah.
boat was uh, colliding with the Queen Mary, and a whole bunch of people died. I was in that part of the boat, and I didn't feel anything. But then there were other people who were in the party that were like, "Ooh, this feels really creepy."
Power of suggestion can certainly be the case sometimes, but
Yeah.
I've been up there too. I know what I wanted to tell you. Um, I've heard things in different languages too, where it's like, or people have responded electronic voice phenomena. I was in a now closed hospital in East LA, and I went in and I hear, oh, there's a young man. I'm in this like former emergency room. They use it now for filming and other. I think they may be even turning it into a senior home. And so, but I'm in this room and I hear this young man say, "Oh, I'm here." And oh, he's here. He's in a young guy. He's like 15 years old. Got killed riding a bike at night in the neighborhood. And so my friends recorded it, and then they found me like 3 weeks later. So, oh, you won't believe we played this back, and we heard a electronic voice phenomena in Spanish saying, "It's me, it's me." He's talking about me. So it's like that was kind of interesting, you know. So and then I've heard, you know, I've done readings for people where I will phonetically sound out a word in another language. For one reading, I said, "I hear the word blah blah blah," and he said, "Oh, you just said Christmas tree in Russian." Oh, okay. Well, and it turned out to be very relevant for the reading because the mother had lost her daughter right around Christmas. And so then I realized, oh, your daughter says you have not put your Christmas tree up this year because you were so, you know, the holiday is ruined for you because of when I died and how I died. She was hit by a car walking on a dark street right before Christmas. And she just couldn't get past it, but the daughter said, put up a Christmas tree. And it was a pretty tough reading, but it was just interesting how language doesn't matter sometimes. It really doesn't.
Wow. So
Sure.
I wanted to get close that loop on the Queen Mary and how if you walk into that bulkhead area, do you kind of empathically take on the sadness and fear and other kind of negative emotions, or are you just quite separate from that and you're like, oh yeah, something terrible happened here, that's a real shame, and you're able to kind of keep the boundary up?
Well, Stefan, if I took on the pain of everybody I've read for, I would be a basket case. Because so many of us, especially people that want to come see me, are dealing with some big issues. And many of them are painful and they're about loss and pain. And, you know, I've lost parents. I lost a dad and stepdad. I've lost people. We all do at a certain age. So if I'm to walk into an environment like that, I pray before I go in, and I pray afterwards, and I never go in feeling like it's just me. I always ask for God to kind of keep an eye on me,
Yeah.
because sometimes I don't know what I'm going to face. I mean, I've been in places where there are very negative energies, where people have been murdered, and I know that to be a fact. And so I'm told that after the fact, pretty bad things. And so I'm a pretty lighthearted guy. I like to joke. I like to play. I mean, you're probably getting a little bit of that from just as we've talked.
Yeah.
But if I don't,
But without the
go
turban,
things,
though.
only for very special occasions do I. People have to pay me extra to dress with the turban. God forbid. Yeah, so I try to, like, I would go in and I'd say, all right, there's there's a great sense of loss. I've been on battlefields. I feel like I'm almost sweating when I think about, like, I've been at Gettysburg in this one place, little round top that had a very famous bloody hand-to-hand battle. And I definitely feel the angst and pain and fear there. But then I've learned to, like, okay, I'm going to separate myself. I'm going to put up a barrier. I'm not going to allow that to get to me. And so that's how I just try to, like, as we were I don't know if we were on camera or not, I try to be conscious of where my mind goes. I try to direct my consciousness to a certain place for certain reasons. And I mean, it doesn't mean that I put my head in the sand, but it's like, yes, I know this occurred. This is a painful thing for these people. I pray for them. I think prayer helps me a lot. I also meditate. Meditation helps me, again, get used to, like, knowing where my mind is going to go and then directing my thoughts towards something I want to focus on, or away from things that I don't need to dwell on. You can be aware of it, but it doesn't mean you have to hold it tight and let it simmer, you know. So
What kind of meditation do you do? Is it like TM, transcendental meditation, or mindfulness meditation, or what?
I don't know how I would describe it. I guess I'll do different kinds of meditation. One is, like, I call it a 7-minute vacation, 10-minute vacation, where I focus on one thing, and then I am then capable of not focusing on everything else.
Mm.
I'll light a candle prior to a reading, and it's not that I need the ceremony, need this and this. No, I'll just focus on the flame for a little bit. It takes my mind away. If I don't have a candle, I'll focus on my breathing. And then I also do other kinds of meditation where it's like I need to go find something. I need to go hear something or learn something. So I'll create a thing where, okay, in my mind, I see myself on walking on a road that I really like. There's uh, in the family back east, there's this wonderful little road around the lake, and I picture, in my mind, I see, big pine trees, fresh air. It gets dark. It's up in Maine. It's a beautiful location, and it allows me to I can put it together in my head, and then I start walking with the idea that, okay, I'm walking on this road and I don't know who I'm supposed to meet. So I'm going to be very patient and keep walking until that person shows up. And that person, for me, can be a guide, guardian angel, can be one of my dads, my stepdad, or my dad. I'm very blessed to have two really good father figures in my life. I'm really blessed in that respect.
Mm.
So I don't know if one of them show up, or a grandfather or a grandmother, any and all of them, depending on what I need to hear, they tend to show up.
Mm. I'm guessing you're not afraid of death. Like one of the top fears of everyone is fear of death, along with fear of. I was going to say the tax man, but no, that's not it. What's the other
I'm
one?
like, tax man that's legitimate.
I'm confusing the expression
yeah.
is, nothing's more sure than death and taxes, right?
Well, I mean, I'm not looking forward to, struggling to breathe and or being in an accident or the pain. Oddly enough, I got the wind knocked out of me on the bottom of a pool once.
Hmm.
And when I was a kid, and I remember laying on the bottom of the pool and thinking, and I was really, get up, get up, get up. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. And then I just laid there. And so I was conscious on the bottom of the pool thinking, I can't move. I'm like looking at myself and I'm not afraid right now. And was having this really weird, like, I'm not afraid. I can see things. I can see, but I couldn't move and I couldn't, do anything. And then, people realized, oh, he's laying on the bottom of the pool a little too long. Maybe we should go get him. I'm part of a big family, and so we like to, knock each other around and throw each other around and punch and slug when we're kids. This is just what we did. But I managed to catch an elbow, I think, in the solar plexus or something, and I just went under. And but so am I afraid of dying? I know here's what I can tell. I know for a fact I feel fortunate. I know that when I cross over, there will be people waiting for me. I've heard them come through for lots of other people. I'm absolutely convinced without a shadow of a doubt that it isn't just dark. There's life, there's consciousness, there's learning. Um, in a nutshell, consciousness survives the body. I can't say that enough for people.
Hmm.
Consciousness survives the body. I think we still retain the sense of who we are and what we're like, but we let go of some of the more frivolous things that, like, oh, I'm, I'm so devastatingly handsome. Everyone thinks or I'm rich or I'm poor or whatever it is that you find great pride in. That tends to become about as interesting as an old set of clothes that you don't want to wear anymore.
That makes sense. Yep. Do you ever get messages that are directly from the creator, or is it always through somebody who has passed and wants to send a message?
Well, for me, I mean, I've used the term God, Creator, Jesus, any and all of the above,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And so I feel like I have, like, as you know, we're all going through fear of COVID, fear of like rioting, fear of all of these, fear, fear, fear. And I got a very strong message that, Mark, you and your family will be okay. And I got it like right where I'm sitting. We're sitting here, my office looks out over a house and the driveway, and I have big rose bushes over there. And I did feel like I saw, okay, God's talking to me, telling me it's going to be okay. I'm all right. I'm going to stop worrying. I am going to stop worrying. And it was helpful.
Oh, that's great. And one thing I learned from an Akashic Records reading from Anne Marie Pizarro, I should totally have her on the podcast. She's amazing. Is that if I'm getting a message from the creator, if I'm essentially like channeling something, that I can check to see, is this actually me or is it the creator? Just by
Uh,
asking the follow-up question, creator or God, is it you?
that's
So,
fascinating.
so that was, and that answer will be correct or true. That was really powerful. Little bit of wisdom that I got from her. I got tons of great messages and insights and stuff. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, just ask the creator, is it you? And that will help you to see if it is truly from the creator or not.
Well, what I get to too, get to what I get as well is that sometimes it's like, okay, this is coming from your grandfather now, or this is coming from someone else. What I would say is that um, I tend to think that we're all connected at a certain point. I mean, Stefan, you or you, but I think each of us, and it's important. I think it's helpful in dealing with people, is that we're all different aspects of God, and then we're all connected.
Yeah.
So if you can accept that, then even though this message may come through from someone that appears to be someone that you know and love, it may be through the Creator. That's really how it is.
Yeah.
I believe in guardian angels, guides, however you want to call them, and that the message has been for me is like whatever you or whoever you're comfortable with, your guardian angel or guide will be will appear in that way. You know, if you're comfortable with a guy that looks like the butcher from down the street, you want to see him wearing a smock and a little blood on this, that I'll show up. I don't care. You want me to look like the nun that took care of you when you were 12 years old? I'll do that. You want me to be an Indian shaman? Fine. Whatever you're comfortable with. I don't care. It's like all we want, all of our spiritual guides on the inside want us to be comfortable so that we'll listen. We won't get hung up with like, I would never have a guide that looked like this. It's like, all right, really? Okay. You're not comfortable with this? What would you like? Okay. And so it's funny. One of my main guides, as I would call him, I call him Stephen. He's my brother, Steve. It's not Stefan. But, hey, he should have gone with the cooler version. So, but, and he looks like someone that I would have done workshop with, like woodworking. So he's like, he explains things in terms of like, well, you cut this way and you do this tool this way. I mean, I'm not any fancy. I mean, I can cut and do basic woodwork, but he kind of explains it to me in a way that I'm comfortable with it. So be patient with this. Don't force that sin. It's all metaphors, but it's useful to me, and I'm comfortable with it. I don't challenge it.
Yeah.
And so that's all they just don't want you to get hung up on the details. It just, I'm here for you. That's how they appear.
Yeah. And we are all interconnected. We all are part of the oneness or whatever you want to call it. And, I get this very powerful message. I really do believe that there are no coincidences. So one Saturday, I hear the story from Will Henshaw, who was on this podcast. He's the founder of Focus at Will. He used to be a famous musician too, with London Beat. And he said that when he had his heart attack, it was the Widowmaker type of heart attack. So very, very few people make it through that. So he was dead for a period of time. They brought him back. And he had these images of aspens everywhere. It was just such a powerful image.
Really?
Aspens. Yeah, so he didn't even know what trees they were. He just knew what they looked like. And then when he was on his road to recovery. He had to figure out what kind of trees they were, and so he figured it out. Maybe Googled it. And he found out they were aspens, and what he found out about them is that they're all one organism. A whole bunch of these trees will interconnect at the root system, so it's one big organism, and it's a very powerful metaphor. And then the next day, I'm in this oneness meditation thing taught by Preeta Ji in India, and so she's live streaming it. And there's this whole thing about aspens. I'm like, wow, okay, that's the weirdest thing, because nobody ever talks about aspens in my vicinity, and now twice in a row in the same weekend.
Huh.
Wow. Okay, so I knew that there was a message there, and that wasn't a coincidence. So anyways, when you were talking about how we are just, all interconnected, I was thinking about the aspens.
Well, it's a perfect analogy. I mean, we're all just different facets of who God the Creator is.
Yeah.
And we just look a little different, but it doesn't matter. We're all, if you kind of go up high enough, it's like I think of myself as being the very tip of a root of a large tree. And there's a gazillion little, countless little roots and, things that stick out from the roots. But you go up high enough, it's all one tree. But it's fascinating to think that a forest of aspens is a single organism.
Yeah.
I also talk about how all rivers lead to the ocean. Mm-hmm. And, for me, a river, a tributary, a stream could be a religion. Some are bigger, some are smaller, but they all feed into the same source of energy and love.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. So you'd mentioned that you try to focus on what is the actionable stuff for the person you're reading for. But if you're trying to read for yourself, like to learn about your own self, aren't you curious about things like your past lives and stuff like that? Are you getting those kinds of messages about yourself?
I'll ask for guidance. That's particularly when I take a walk down the road and I don't know what I'm supposed to know. I don't know if this is, the information I should act on or not, but I ask to be guided. It's like, I don't know what I should do. I need to go. That's a wonderful, those little meditations. I don't meditate a long time. I don't need to. I can't imagine what I would do with 2 hours. I think I'd fall asleep. But I mean, if I take 15, 20 minutes, I'm out tooling around almost in this place in my mind or the universe. Mm-hmm. And that's when I start to get some really useful information. What's interesting for me in a past life, I get this thing. I saw myself jumping off a boat with a gun in my hands, like a amphibious assault. I've seen it happen a couple times in my head where I'm a soldier, I'm jumping into water, I'm getting shot, and I'm drowning. So it kind of fits where I am. I mean, I have asthma. When I was a kid, I had really bad asthma. I mean, it was like it was debilitating. It kept me from being in school and doing other things. I eventually outgrew it. But I've almost drowned twice. One time, 2 times. And I've also had a concussion out surfing. So that wasn't good, but it wasn't like I was underwater for, unconscious for a long time. I got help pretty quick there. But so I think that ties in. That night I just had like this flash. I'm on a small boat with a friend of mine. We were sailing around the Channel Islands, and I'm reaching with a whisker pole to grab, we were going to do a mooring. You go up, you pull up to a mooring, which is like a floating anchor in a sense. You pull up, it's anchored on the bottom underwater, but you pull up and you just grab this mooring, and that's where you go. And I swear, it's like, I feel like I'm in a khaki uniform. I feel like that this is not a whisker pole, but a rifle, and I'm getting ready to make an assault. And I just get this thing that just, so I really think that at one point it was relevant. past lives seldom come up for clients. Sometimes they do. This one woman, um, she was having an affair with a married guy, and she was, enthralled with him. And she told me that from the moment I met him, we seemed to know each other. And so she was bending over backwards. He was still involved with his family. She was definitely having to circle around him in order to be part of his life. He'd get away for a little bit and she'd go wherever he had time. And then she asked me, why did I know him so well? Why was I, so willing to upend my life to try to be there with him, even though the circumstances aren't great? And I got to sense, oh, you were his slave in a previous life. He owned you. He owns you now. What do you want to do about that? And so she was like, oh, all right. Yes, that resonates. That explains why she said, I felt like I knew him, he knew me, but we adopted a rather, it was an unhealthy relationship for her. It would never be truly fulfilling. I'm not judging. I'm just saying it's like, he's not going to give up his wife and kids for you. Is that enough? And she's realizing no. And then just this whole, he owned you. He owned you. That's why you knew him. That's why you were familiar. It's important that you break that cycle.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
Wow. Okay. So there's another question I got to ask, and that is pets. Like, can I get a message from my cat who passed away, for example? Can I get a message from my first dog that I ever owned? Like, or is it purely from kind of the human realm or previously human realm?
Well, I do believe that. I mean, here's the thing. I don't think that you're gonna. If I do accept reincarnation, I do believe that's real, but I don't think you're gonna come back as a cat next time. I think that they are conscious beings. I think they make us better humans. They make us better spirits. I believe that they are connected to us. What I'll get is like, okay, your cat showed up. Your cat is, trying to. They want to provide comfort and teach us. They want to teach and educate. That's kind of their role, and so they do that for us. I wish I could be more definitive, but they'll come through and say, "Hey, you used to feed me spaghetti. I like that. Thank you. I love you." I mean, it's kind of had a dog come through. Had this dog come through and said, the dog says it likes Goldie. Who's Goldie? And the woman laughed and said, okay, I have a gold colored car. And I would always say, you want to go for a ride in Goldie? And
Oh,
so,
that's awesome.
yeah, so they're conscious. They're conscious of like things that they like Goldie. And says, you built a car, like a carpet covered seat specifically for the dog. Yes, it was like you built it out of plywood and you put carpet on it so it'd be comfortable. Yes. Okay. Well, dog knows that, said thanks, and they show up and they love us, I mean they just do.
That's awesome. Yep. Our cat who passed, I miss her terribly, but she was such a teacher for not just me, but for my wife as well, because now we have a 9-month-old baby.
Oh, well, wonderful.
And yeah,
Right.
this is my wife's first child, and yeah, our cat was her kind of test drive or whatnot, like her training wheels or whatever the word is for
You were
this.
training wheels.
Yeah. So yeah, pretty cool.
Like that. Well, they do teach us. They teach us to be patient. We have an older dog now, and she's having health issues that are teaching me to be patient, to not scream and yell when she uh, leaves us a large present on the floor, because I don't know that she's conscious that she's going through this. I think she's becoming incontinent, and it's like it's not like a puppy that you could teach it to not do that.
Mm.
She's been housebroken all her life, and all of a sudden she's having this issue, and it's like, all right, it's really unpleasant when this happens, but I don't know that she's really conscious of what's happening.
Yeah.
So how do I I haven't got quite the answer to it yet. We don't know if it's a little trend or something bigger or something. We don't know what's going to happen next, but we're now trying to figure out how to be of service to her and keep her comfortable without having a lot of accidents in the house.
Yeah. Well, best of luck with that. That is
Yes.
challenging. We didn't know that our cat was sick, and she ended up having cancer, and it went fast. It went fast, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's all, death is part of life. It's all part
It
of
is.
the bigger picture. Now, there's one thing that we talked about before the recording that I do want to get in before we wrap up, and that is the role that depression had in
Oh yeah.
elevating your career or mission in this gift.
Well, Stefan, I went through a clinical depression in my early 30s. It was related to work. I was trying to do this, trying to do that, and I just didn't realize that I see depression, a number of causes, at least in my case. I was getting into the habit of only looking for negative things and validated my being depressed, and things are bad and things are worse. And so a great doctor told me, okay, you're only focusing on the negative. There are a number of things we can do for you. And by the way, anyone who's going through depression, don't do it alone. Please seek help. Get someone to help you. Reach out to people you love. What you're going through is not logical. I was beginning to think terrible things were logical when I was depressed. But then the doctor went to, I basically caused me to redirect my thoughts. He said, when you see something positive, take out a little notepad, keep a notepad with you, something you can tuck in your pocket, record it, acknowledge it, write it down. And so I get out of the habit of only focusing on the negative, and I began to focus on the positive.
So that was like
And
you were tuning your reticular activating system.
yes, I was basically adjusting the radio frequency.
Yeah.
And so it went from that to where I learned that I could control where my mind went for other things. And then I could control my mind in going through meditation. I can control what I allowed to affect me and what I wanted to pay attention to. And that's when when I was in depression, I realized I was turning off and not listening to so many things. I was just tuning out everything. And so when I started to tune into everything, I started to not only get the positive stuff, but I got other messages as well, things that come from outside my consciousness. So I was open to listening because I was like, okay, no more shutting down. I'm staying open. I'm going to be open. I'm going to listen. And that's when I began to get messages that I could validate, that started to help me, help my family, then I started to help other people.
Right. So it really kind of upped your game as in terms of amplifying that receiver.
I optimized.
Yeah. Very cool. Very, very cool.
So a big optimization mode, which is what I love about what you do.
Yeah. Amazing. So if somebody wanted to work with you, how would they go about doing this? How do they get in touch, and what's it like to work with you?
Oh, it's awful. You don't want to work.
Got the turban out, and it's
Don't do it. Don't do it. Save your time, your heart. All right, no. My name is, if you go to my site, it's Mark Nelson Medium.
Yep.
MarkNelsonMedium.com. I do phone readings. I'm in the LA area. I'm actually allowing people to come to the house now. As long as you can't. I used to give hugs all the time. I'm going to wait on that a little bit. But if you want to wear a mask, you can. But in truth, even before we became so concerned about COVID, about 95% of my readings were by phone, because I've been fortunate enough to have clients around the country, and then Europe and South America and Asia. So I've kind of had a very broad reach. And so and I just learned that it's almost easier in some ways, because if someone is very emotional when they come to me, or they're reacting to certain things, I'm not trying to listen to you. I'm trying to listen to the person who's here for you.
Yeah.
the spirit who is here for you. And so I can do this by phone. I can do this it's easier.
Hmm.
One thing, if someone does come to me, I'm very blessed. I can do something called psychometry, where if you sit for me, if you want to, I'll hold, like if you wear a ring, let me hold your ring. And it helps me tune in. It's like a tuning fork. Or if you wanted to hear, hey, I want to hear from my mom. I brought her necklace that she wore all the time, or this is a ring that she wore, or old eyeglasses. I've held eyeglasses, shirts, toys. Oh, and a joke one. I did a psychometry presentation,
Mm-hmm.
and someone brought a little doll, set a doll on the table, a little sailor, it looked like a Cracker Jacks doll. And so I picked it up, and he's surrounded by love. Okay, all right. Whoever I had brought up, and what happened was I didn't know who brought things in. They would bring for psychometry. They'd put it on a table. I wouldn't see. I picked up the doll, and I said, "This doll is surrounded by love." And all of like 6 women in the room started to crack up and laugh. And it turned out they were all taking turns taking photos of the doll.
Mm-hmm.
They were stuffing him down their cleavage. And taking selfies with this little doll sticking out. So I interpreted that as being surrounded by love. But that was just kind of a funny little thing.
That's awesome. So psychometry, that's very cool.
Psychometry. So in-person psychometry or just by phone, it all works. MarkNelsonMedium.com.
Amazing. Well, this is such a inspiring episode. I want to sign up myself. I want to do some readings with you, and I really do hope that you, the listener, take advantage of Mark's incredible gifts. And I'm a pretty good read on who's legit, and
thank you.
Yeah. So definitely check Mark out. And so again, MarkNelsonMedium.com, and of course, GetYourselfOptimized.com for the show notes, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Thanks very much.